Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 31 of Ultimate Exotics, the review series for Gran Turismo's top tier supercar selection. And some of the cars in the series aren't necessarily supercars by modern standards, but back when they were released, they were the equivalent of today's ultimate supercars. Whereas in modern times they may have performance on the game that's more akin to a super sports model rather than a pure full-on supercar. And the car in this episode kind of falls into that category to some degree. It's an iconic supercar, one of the fastest cars from the 80s, the RUF CTR Yellowbird. Probably the most iconic RUF, the best known, the most respected, and one of the fastest even to this day. Now, pretty much any RUF model is going to be quick. That's what they do. And it is, of course, a Porsche-based vehicle. And as such, being based on a Porsche, especially a classic Porsche, there are certain pros and cons that come with that. Now, one of the main advantages of being based on a classic Porsche is you automatically are pretty much guaranteed to have a compact and lightweight layout. The old 911 is a relatively small car, and it's a very lightweight car. The fact that it has a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout for the most part means that the weight is as advantageous as a front-engine, front-wheel drive car. Everything is in one place. You don't need prop shafts connecting the front to the back, and etc., etc. It's simpler, it's lighter, it's cleaner. But just like with a front-wheel drive car having not very much weight over the rear end and that possibly causing issues, the same thing can happen with the opposite. A rear-engine, rear-wheel drive car will often have a very light front end. Not always, but often. And that is certainly the case with many older Porsches. They're known for it, to some degree. They're known as being challenging cars to drive fast. Now, that's pretty much in their standard form. If you then take that Porsche and turn it into a 211 mile per hour machine, which is what the Yellowbird is in real life, it's going to be a bit sketchy, to say the least. You then take that car and put it on Gran Turismo and make it do 270 miles per hour under its own power, and logically, it's going to be even more sketchy. To some degree, that's kind of true, but at the same time, it's surprisingly not. Because although the Yellowbird certainly isn't the easiest of cars to drive, I would categorise it in the same kind of class as vehicles like the Stratos and the Cobra and the F40 on Gran Turismo 6 at least, where they're not the kind of car that you can just jump in and drive fast. They're the kind of car which you have to learn how the car performs. Now that's true to some degree with all vehicles, but with certain cars it does take more learning than with others. Many cars drive in a very similar way. These speciality cars, or these niched models like the Cobra and the Stratos, you have to learn specifically with that car how to use it properly. And that's certainly the case with the Yellowbird. The fact that it is a very compact car and it only weighs in at 1,064 kilos, which is lighter than most supercars, means that the handling can be unruly. But funnily enough, it's actually the most unruly at lower speeds, because that light front end can sometimes cause the front end to run away with itself a little bit. Kind of like the opposite to fishtailing. Fishtailing, but with the front of the car. At high speeds, it's actually not that much of an issue. The car handles itself pretty well at high speeds, and that light front end can actually work to your advantage because it gives you more manoeuvrability. Now, as far as pure spec, the Yellowbird is a strong model. It's expensive at 236,000 credits, but for that you get a 3.4 litre turbo engine, as we said, rear mounted, and it puts out some pretty impressive power, especially for its age. 791 horsepower and 660 foot-pounds of torque. Now you put that in a car that only weighs, in effect, a little bit over a tonne, and unsurprisingly it's putting out 743 horsepower per tonne, which is on par with a fully tuned GT class, say GT3 car, of many types. Now, be that as it may, 236,000 credits is still a lot for a classic, and for a car which, although it is a classic, it's not a true classic. It's only barely a classic. It's certainly a classic of the supercar world, but not necessarily of cars in general. It's not considered to be that kind of vehicle anyway. So is it worth that, and is it competitive enough to genuinely use? Well, as far as being worth that, I would say yes, it is. It's a fantastic collector's piece. It's arguably the most iconic car RUF has ever built. And overall, yes, it is just worth that price. That's the kind of money you could pay for a super sports model. So for a car which can do 270 and has unique handling, yeah, it's certainly worth that. In terms of where to use it, well, it actually does have its uses. The fact that its high-speed handling is fairly loose can come into its own on certain tracks, such as Special Stage Route 7 or Le Mans. Tracks where it's not just about pure straight-line speed or pure handling, but a mix of both. And the Yellowbird, as challenging as it can be for less experienced drivers, does actually have a good mix of both. It has loose steering, which is very good at high speeds, especially on Special Stage Route 7, which is actually a very deceiving track. It can seem to be just another variation of Route X, but it's actually not. You have to have very good handling on that track, and the Yellowbird is potentially perfect for it against other supercars. So the Yellowbird is the kind of vehicle which is niched, certainly, but if you do use it on the right track, it will serve you very well. And, if nothing else, it makes a great collector's piece. So, that's it for this episode. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.